Ooh. Hey class, last minute lecture. I just realized that my persuasive lecture never got posted and now I can't find it, so I'm redoing it. So I understand this is the Friday before your exam on Monday. This will get posted today. You don't need to make any comments on it. Everybody's good to go. I just want to make sure that this gets out to you guys today so that you'll have it to study over the weekend. All right, let me get a marker. Okay, all right, so today we're going to be talking about persuasion, okay, and how to be persuasive, all right? And I'm also aware of the fact that all you have already posted your persuasive speeches. I got that. I will take all of this into consideration when grading those speeches, which I was going to be doing this afternoon. Hopefully I'll still get to it. If not, I'll get it done tomorrow, so you guys will have it before your finals. First of all, let's talk about persuasion. What persuasion is not is coercion, okay? If I walk up, and this is my simulated gun, and I point my gun at you and say, give me all your money or I'm going to shoot you dead, okay? That's not persuasion, that's coercion. Coercion is seeking to change someone's attitudes through threats of force or violence, okay? So we're not talking, we want to differentiate persuasion from coercion. Persuasion, okay? Persuasion is a legitimate effort to affect others' attitudes through providing the audience information so they can modify their own behaviors, okay? Persuasion is a legitimate effort. Coercion is a threat. So you understand? So again, if your one option, your one choice is give you all my money or die, that's not really a choice. That's coercion, okay? Now, everybody persuades people all the time. There are some really standard things that can block your ability to persuade. We call them obstacles to persuasion. The first one we want to talk about is selective perception. Now, selective perception is when, based on the premise that we've already talked, remember when we were talking about the difference between listening and hearing? Okay, we can't absorb all stimuli, all right? We talked about that we have to select what we're going to listen to. Sometimes we'll ignore something even though we're hearing it, we won't listen to it. Well, selective perception works on the premise that we can't absorb all stimuli, so we filter out a lot of data. And if it's something we just don't want to listen to, we just don't want to listen to it, okay? You know, whenever a parent looks at at their teenager and goes, hey, listen, I'm going to talk to you about why you shouldn't be out running around at night, at midnight, and they just go, and they just completely tune them out. There's been no telling how many times where I've been sitting there, reading a book, watching TV, and my wife will make a comment about what's going on the television, and I just, what, huh? I'm not even aware of what program's on. Okay, so we select what we're going to perceive. The second thing is selective recall. We really only remember the things we want to, okay? We can, if we do perceive it, we can filter it out later and choose not to recall it. Some of these things are voluntary. Sometimes selective recall is not. If it's trauma, sometimes you'll force it out of your mind, okay? But just because you see or hear something that contradicts something you already believe in, you may just say, well, I don't remember that, okay? Don't you remember if you've got somebody and you're trying to discuss with them about economic disadvantages in South Aiken County? Go, well, you drive through South Aiken County yesterday and we saw those ramshackle houses down there. Don't you remember that? I don't remember that. Okay? Then there is selective exposure. Selective exposure is real simple. You got a bunch of people that you're talking to, and you're telling them, okay, I go to an NRA convention, and I'm going to tell them about why we should have new gun control laws. And I start up and I say, hey, listen, everybody, today I'm going to tell you why we should have new, more aggressive gun control laws here in the United States. And people go, I'm not going to listen to this. And they get up and walk out. They just refuse to be exposed to it. Okay? They just don't want to hear it. All right? So that's selective exposure. You just refuse to be exposed to things that you don't already agree with. You refuse to be exposed to things that could actually persuade you. The fourth thing is someone's degree of commitment. Okay, and I'm going to be kind of, I'm going to make some horrendous overstatements here, but this is just for an example. So you've been asked to come talk to at what you know to be a very conservative Baptist church, or any church, very conservative, very literal when it comes to the interpretation of the Bible, and you are the subject matter expert in the United States on evolution. You are going to go to this church and tell them, and try to persuade them as to the scientific credibility of the theory of evolution. Okay, those people are very deeply committed. Okay, they have a very high degree of commitment. In addition to having a high degree of commitment, there's also public commitment. If someone has ever had to state in public that they believe a certain thing or they feel a certain way, once they make those public statements, okay, they're locked in. It's going to be very hard to get that attitude to change. Now, selective perception, they just don't listen, or they don't bother to process the stimuli. Selective recall, they won't remember it afterwards. Selective exposure, they just leave instead of being exposed to something they don't agree with. Their degree of commitment and public degree of commitment. Are these things, is it impossible to overcome these things? No, absolutely not. Okay? And here we're going to talk about how to do that. Some real simple things to do. Okay, first, the first way to persuade someone is to use reason and evidence. You remember pathos, logos, and ethos? This is logos, a logical approach. You make your argument relevant to the audience. You use the strongest argument you have and focus on it. If there is a high personal relevance to the audience, you use credible evidence, and you repeat your argument often. You use a lot of internal summaries. Okay? So the first is the obvious one. Use reason and evidence in a logical argument that's relevant to your audience. The second technique is called foot in the door. Okay? Foot in the door works if you don't think you're going to get everything you want up front, but you may get additional concessions over time. You're going to be able to come back and persuade them again later. You know who uses foot in the door all the time? Teenagers. Okay? Hey, Dad, is it okay if I stay out till 10:15 tonight instead of 10 o'clock? Okay? Just easing up 15 minutes every week until suddenly they're coming home at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay? You know who else uses foot in the door? Car salesman. Hey, Mr. McInnes, welcome to VW of Augusta. Well, what kind of car are you looking at today? Well, we were hoping to buy something small, something inexpensive like a Jetta. Oh, VW Jettas are the greatest small car in the world. What are you looking for in that car, Mr. McInnes? Well, mainly the safety, the mileage, maybe some of the options. But we're just looking for basic transportation. Well, Mr. McInnes, our Jettas are way down on the other end of the lot. We're going to walk down there. But hey, right here is the Passat. The Passat's a great little car. Why don't you take a look at the Passat? It's just a little bit better. It's a little bit more expensive than the Jetta, but it's got a little bit more leg room. It's got a few more appointments. It's got a few more options. And you go, well, okay, I'll look at the Passat. He's got his foot in the door. Then 3 hours later, you've gone from the $14,000 used VW Jetta to where you're buying a brand new $84,000 Tiguan. Because he got his foot in the door and he continued to build on that. Okay? The next one is called the door in the face. Now, the door in the face is where you start off seemingly advocating for something you probably don't need and probably aren't going to get anyway. Okay, and then you suddenly back off and you say, but hey, let's talk about something that we can reasonably do. So if we're talking about like global warming, hey, listen, the solution to global warming clearly is for the United States to get rid of every internal combustion engine, and this is how great that would be. Well, nobody's going to go for that. But then your second main point is, you know, but since we're not going to do that, let's talk about some things that we actually can achieve. And people are going from to okay, we can talk. Okay, who else uses door in the face? Teenagers again. Hey, Mom, Dad, big party over at Susie's house this Saturday. I know my curfew is 10:30, but I'd like to stay out to 2:15. No, that's not going to happen. Well, if 2:15 is not doable, what about 11 o'clock? Okay? And then they'll go for 11 o'clock. All right? The key thing about foot in the door is you have to have an opportunity to persuade again later for future persuasion. For door in the face, you have to be able to back off and offer them an immediate lesser option. Okay? You can show the proposal is in line with current attitudes. Okay, you've been seeing that a lot this week, okay, with President Bush's funeral. You've been seeing a lot of people, Democrats, Republicans, coming out and saying, hey, there's a lot of things we liked about President Bush, and what I'm talking about here is completely in line with what President Bush thought, okay? That's happened a lot, okay? Also, you can bring two disparate things together. Hey, listen, we all believe that our veterans should be treated well, and we all should give them all the opportunities they can. But hey, let's, you know, but also veterans in the Aiken County community will be an economic boon for this community. So not only are we saying we should treat veterans well, but we've also got this other attitude, we need to improve the economy of Aiken County. Okay, so you're pushing two things together and causing people to think differently. Then the next one is appeal to an alternate value system. Okay, appeal to an alternate value system. Again, stopping global warming may not be a big deal because you really don't care if Micronesia floods, all right? But if we sold global warming, and this is what President Obama was doing that was very effective, was that, okay, who cares about global warming? Who cares about whether or not Micronesia floods and the islands disappear? But, you know, if we stay as part of the Paris Accord and we have all these incentives, all these businesses, in the global, you know, a next generation energy industry will be an American strong suit, and we will be the global leader in sustainable energy, and that will give us 100,000 U.S. jobs or 1 million U.S. jobs. Okay? So if people aren't buying the global warming going to flood New Jersey, you know, and Florida is going to disappear under the Gulf of Mexico, fine. Appeal to another. You know, hey, there's money involved. Okay? And let that impress them. Now, there's two other ones that I'm going to give you, okay, that are used. It's currently being used all the time, especially the first one. The first one is arouse fear in order to persuade. Okay, so the question becomes, arouse fear, how is that different from coercion? All right, if I tell you thousands of immigrants are coming to the United States and they're going to murder you, okay, that's arousing fear. Here's the problem. You can only keep people afraid for so long. We've talked about performance apprehension, how that fear dissipates. To maintain fear is a way to persuade people. The threat has to keep getting bigger and bigger. And as the threat gets bigger and bigger, the way people react to it get bigger and bigger. Okay? And also, if I'm telling you that if you don't do that, you're all going to die, okay, that's coercion. The other one. Offer a reward. So here's the problem with offering a reward. If you get somebody to do something once by giving them something or giving them a reward, how are you going to get them to do it a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time? And not only are they going to want to continue to get the reward, human nature says that reward is going to have to get bigger. Now, when you appeal to an alternate value premise, you can say, and one of the values of this is that we'll, all be economically better off. That's fine. But if you say, I need you to do this and I'm going to give you $1,000. I need you to do it again in a month and I want give you $1,000. I want you to do it again and I'll give you $1,000. Pretty soon somebody's going, wait a minute. If you'll give me $1,000, you'll give me $1,250. And if you gave me $1,250, you're going to give me $1,500. Okay? So be aware of that. All right. Close it in here. This is the Reader's Digest condensed version of this lecture. A couple of things you need to be aware of. Okay? There's two ways to do it. You can give a one-sided persuasive speech, or you can give and this is going to be stunning, a two-sided persuasive speech. A one-sided persuasive speech is where you get up and you just give your ideas and give your side. Perfectly valid, great way to do it. Okay? Just give your arguments. It works really well if you're just looking to reinforce attitudes, if the audience already agrees with you or is predisposed to agree with you. Okay? It works when members of the audience are poorly educated on the subject, and this is really the first thing they'll ever hear about it. Going to a second side just muddies things up. It works when you need to get the audience to commit immediately. I need you to donate money or sign this petition right now. Let me get the lights. And it also works when comprehension is really important. Now, the two-sided persuasive speech is where you give both sides of an argument. It's a lot more complex. It can be harder to grasp. Okay, but two-sided is persuasive. If you're advocating for Plan A, and you know somebody's going to come in next week and talk against Plan A, okay, you want to set it up. Hey, listen, I know a lot of people have, we've talked about raising the drinking age in the state of South Carolina to 25. Okay, and how good that will be. It will lessen traffic accidents. It's going to save lives. 83% of our alcoholics start drinking before you serious drinking between 21 and 25. Okay, now there's going to be somebody come in here and they're going to tell you that, yeah, we can raise the drinking age to 25, but people are going to drink anyway. And they're also going to tell you that you're going to lose a lot of state revenues from the sales of that alcohol. Well, we want to talk about that too. Okay? And then you just knock that down. Okay? That way, when the guy comes in here next week to talk about why you shouldn't raise the drinking age, people are sitting there going, well, yeah, we've heard all this, and that's not necessarily true. Especially if the next guy coming in only does a one-sided persuasive speech, and you've given both sides and knocked his side down already, he looks very weak, and you look like you've got the stronger position. Okay? All right. Overall, ethically, when you're being persuasive, don't hide the fact that you're being persuasive. You don't have to come out and hit people over the head with it, but you do need to talk about it. Okay? And you need to make sure that they know that you're there advocating for a position. If it's a paid gig and you're getting paid, ethically, you should tell people that you were there representing an organization. Okay? Do you have to lead with it? Yeah, it needs to be pretty close to the front. Otherwise, you look like you're being pretty sketchy. Okay? That's persuasion. Some of that will be on your final. I'm going to get this posted today so that everybody can see it. I'm also going to get your speeches graded in the next few minutes, hopefully. Other than that, we will see you guys Monday morning at 8 o'clock.